Pode ser o Grupo Corpo ou a Companhia de Dança do Pantanal, Museu de Arte Moderna de São Paulo ou Arte em Cores, Filarmônica de Minas Gerais ou Programa Vale Música. Onde tem cultura, a Vale está. Dos projetos que todo mundo já conhece, até aqueles projetos que todo mundo precisa conhecer. É valorizando essa cultura que crescemos e evoluímos juntos.
Com o apoio do Instituto Cultural Vale, a arte popular é destaque no Maranhão.
E o nosso papel é fazer com que elas sejam conhecidas, valorizadas.
Vale, transformar a mineração hoje é transformar o amanhã de todos.
Ministério do Turismo e a Associação Casa Azul apresentam 20ª Flip Festa Literária Internacional de Paraty. O projeto conta com benefício da Lei Federal de Incentivo à Cultura. Vale Mais Cultura. Tem patrocínio oficial do Instituto Cultural Vale. Patrocínio Itaú. Copatrocínio O Globo. Apoio Esquilo, Macmóveis, Prefeitura de Paraty, Globo Livros, Unigel, CQSFV Advogados e Oceana. Concepção Associação Casa Azul. E realização Secretaria Especial da Cultura, Ministério do Turismo, Pátria Amada Brasil, Governo Federal.
Um dos pilares de atuação da Casa Poéticas Negras, né, que é uma associação sem fins lucrativos aqui de Paraty, é a educação. E a educação pautada no viés da literatura afro-brasileira e diaspórica. Então, utilizar esse pilar como forma de educar, uma forma de você atuar, tanto para jovens quanto para adultos, até mesmo criança, né, que a literatura infantil hoje ela é libertadora, né? Quando uma criança consegue se ver, se representar numa história ou de princesa, né, ou uma aventura, ela consegue entender que ela tem uma identidade ali, né, que ela é representada de forma bela, né? E isso faz muita diferença quando a gente, por exemplo, atua nas escolas aqui de Paraty com a literatura afro-brasileira. Então, esse jovem que muitas vezes não é revisitado, né, nesse material didático, ele se sente valorizado. Então, o evento, para nós, ele tem uma entrega extremamente importante, porque a Flip transpira literatura, né? Transpira conhecimento. E promover o conhecimento a partir de fontes diversas, que é isso que nós propomos com a casa. Então, existe uma literatura preta, viva, atuante, tão quanto a branca, tão quanto a indígena. E essa literatura precisa ser difundida. Então, a difusão dentro de um evento dessa magnitude, para a gente tem uma importância enorme. Eu acho que essa importância acontece desde o primeiro dia de Flip, né, que é uma quarta-feira, até o último, que é um domingo. Então, a gente tem essa vontade de se fazer sempre presente, pautando a diversidade. Diversidade étnica, diversidade cultural e a diversidade social. Não tem como ser diferente disso.
Flip 20 anos. Vidas que transformam lugares, que transformam pessoas. Escreva conosco essa história. Faça parte da rede amiga da Flip para continuarmos transformando juntos os próximos 20 anos. Acesse flip.org.br e faça sua doação.
Bom dia.
Good morning. I'm going to read to you all a poem, The Boy with No Bones, by Maria Firmina dos Reis of 1880. It's a poem dedicated to circus artists. And it's beautiful because you have a kind of construction of the poem and imitating the movements, the acrobatic movements of the circus performers, and like a sinuous contortionist kind of language. The boy without bones, whence cometh the scepter that thou rulest the people in frenzied ovation in a strange new way? Art thou scattered spirits wandering this wide world, or living, breathing beings taking the daring lead? Who authorized thee such wondrous arts, giving our Brazil rejoicing in all its parts? Oh, thou art Brazilians, thou art more prodigious. Show, great Europe, that thou too hast prestige. Onward, boys, onward. Fear not thy rivals. If thou art not the first, be then their equals. On the trapeze, on the tightrope, on the wire, moving, shifting, on the bars and balancing. Take the hearts to ecstasy. Raise thy laurel wreath forehead, thou Eduardo Vieira. Tell the world, all the world, long live the Brazilian nation. If you, Vieira and Virgil, thou art known to us, who is not amazed, crazy for the boy with no bones? If from us thou hath not the reward thou merits, proceed elsewhere. Go ahead, boys, provoke the traditions. In life there were no crowns for Bocage nor Camões. Give thou to the world, crush the world, witness their festival, follow the car forward with vivacity of the florist.
Muito obrigada.
Bom dia.
Good morning. And long live Maria Firmina dos Reis. This is the Zé Kleber Roundtable. It was created in 2004. And this is a roundtable. The idea is to have a roundtable that will create a greater connection of our main program with the territory of Paraty. Zé Kleber was born in 72. He was an attorney, a poet, bohemian, and he was very important. He's also a musician. He has amazing music. The hymn, the true hymn of Paraty, was written by him. And Zé Kleber has a very important role because in the 60s and 70s, he was this bridge so that the so-called Cinema Novo, a movement of movies, of pictures in Brazil, and many films were shown here. So he made this connection between Paraty and a cultural center. This cultural movement that Paraty had during those decades was very important to create this new flip, to inspire flip. This mixture of cultures, artists, intellectuals around Brazil who came here to also talk to the caiçaras who were isolated here for more than 100 years, created this amazing melting pot. And when Flip was created, it was born from inside out. Many people from Paraty were feeling very moved and talking to us in 2003 that the good old days were back. And it was something beautiful for us to have this coming together. Zé Kleber was killed in 1979. And today, he should be here with us, along with Carlos Papá and Cris Takuá. We should also have Luis Perequer. He's a very important musician here in Paraty, and very talented, and he's also a thinker. And it was very important to have this exchange with Perequer for Flip to have the format that we do have today. He's a composer, a singer, guitar player, and Perequer created an amazing institution that I guess you all should visit. It's called Sítio Cultural Zé Kleber. And it's a silos, it's a melting pot, it is an area, it's a 200-year silos that was dismounted in the Minas Gerais and reassembled here in a neighborhood a bit far from the neighborhood of Mangueira. This is where the population of Paraty lives. This is a new neighborhood. People had to leave the center, the historical center, and they went to this neighborhood in the outskirts of Paraty. So it's an amazing thing. You have to get to know this Zé Kleber institution. And why we have this? We have the curators who chose the people here. So the idea here is, and last year we prepared a flip dedicated to plants and literature. An important thing in all this was the forest surrounding Paraty, Anye, Teri, and Guarani. This forest is the reason for the existence of this place. It created the bay, the lowlands where we find ourselves now. Hundreds of years ago, this area here was a sea. So it's a very delicate balance, the geomorphology of Paraty. And those that look after this delicacy, this nature, are a native population. The same forest here surrounding us, and this is part of this forest. The same forest is the National Park of Serra da Bocaina, and it also joins with the State Park of Serra do Mar, and it will reach the village of Rio Silveira, where Carlos Papá lives. So this round table was really to open this dialogue between the spirits of this location. What is the spirit of this place where we're at? So on one hand, it will be very positive because we will have more time to talk with the filmmaker, with Carlos Papá, a native leadership, and with the educator Cris Takuá. And they live in the Aldeia do Rio Silveira. So it will be a very interesting experience to bring to Flip the truth about this territory. But first, we will show a video. It is a video we saw yesterday. One of these videos, it was by Pereque, one of the videos that we are showing, not only to show that Flip lives from donations. This video also wants to show that those that are here just around us for the literary part of Flip, which is essential for Flip, to understand this relation of this cultural manifestation, which is Flip, and how it relates to the territory. So we will show Pereque. Pereque tested positive for COVID, so he was unable to be here with us. And he just says hello to all of you.
Mesmo, eu fui convidado pela Cristina Maceda e pela Gabriela, que fazia a flipinha. Então, na verdade, eu entrei.
Flipinha, Flip for Children. So this is when I started working, and this was before I wrote my musical CD for children, and this music I wrote for Flip. And within a Flip, or Flip for Children, a person called Zezuka came to me, and they had a program called Rádio Maluco, and he would come to Paraty every year, and he would do the broadcasting from here. And Zezuka, he already knew my music, Joaninha. This music was recorded by a musician in Belo Horizonte. So I had these, so he brought me to his program, his broadcast. So this was my first contact with the so-called official Flip. And then the influence of Flip in my life is, well, everywhere. Paraty was influenced by Flip. Even if you don't like Flip, you were somehow touched or impacted by it. Because it's important to understand that Paraty lived a period trying to get it right. You know, different events came here, and also the events that belong to the city, such as a Festa do Divino and other traditional festivals that go to the Cachaça Festival, theater, this and that, but nothing really lasted. And even the events, no matter how cultural they were, still related to entertainment, didn't last. So Flip is not only an entertainment event, even though it's considered a cultural event. There's another idea. It's an event that is not an event for just entertainment. It is an event of using or consuming culture through learning, through education. This is an event that happens during the day, so it really deals with behavior issues. And I was talking about Flip for Children, so my music was sent to schools because the schools would come to Flipinha to sing these songs, to present themselves. And also for everyone here, for store owners, because Flip really puts Paraty on the map. They can see that Paraty becomes an international event. So this is an event with a very high quality. You know, we have the first Flips were amazing. The production and everything very well done, very well produced. So everything really transformed the city in general, and regardless of my own life, it transformed the life of the city. Everybody knows what I'm talking about here.
Good morning, I'm Fernanda Bastos with Milena Brito and Pedro Meira. We're the curators, and to continue in this, listening to these leaders who are such an inspiration for us. I'm calling forward the chair of the Gisèle Kleber Roundtable 2022, journalist and editor of 451, Iara Bidermen, and with her, our dear guest speakers, Carlos Papá and Cristine Takuá. Welcome. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Great. Here, we're going to have a conversation with Cristine Takuá, who is a philosopher, a teacher, artist, and activist, and a leader. Carlos Papá, who is a filmmaker, spiritual leader, and activist as well. Concerning the town and the forest, how traditional knowledge can open these towns that were closed off to the forest, the white people's cities, the colonial towns built like this, but we know that they're not colonial. It's on indigenous lands. So I'd like to begin talking with them. What can we do for this territory to open up to converse with traditional forms of knowledge which never separated the forest from dwelling places, humans, and other relatives and the other beings that are our family. Good morning. It's a huge pleasure. I wish to thank all this organization of FLIP, especially Mauro Munoz. It's a huge pleasure to have been invited, and I believe that the townspeople of Paraty have the privilege of still having this huge forest where there are birds, flowers, plants, trees, water, and beings which inhabit the forest. And I also see that the townspeople of Paraty are concerned about remaining and having survived this way of feeling this beauty which continues and pulsating. I see that the city, which was also necessary to have comfort, to live in this way, is part of culture, a culture that is not ours. This way of living, we also see, certainly, the forest will understand the way of human thinking. Okay, Paraty is beginning to be eclectic in its thinking, and I also feel included in this idea that humans, the Parachi townspeople, or we of Parachi, should strengthen this idea that we are part and should open up the dialogue with beings, thinking beings, which are us, of different cultures, that different ideas, however, reaching a consensus that life pulsates and needs to bring this awareness that this way, or the way that Flip is organized, calling people together for dialogue with the public like you, writers, artists. As I see it, this is all essential because the awareness that and the sensitivity in the hearts of people, people that think. So I believe in this undertaking, and I believe that you are still wonderful people and thoughtful people whom I believe in. I believe in you as thoughtful people. I think Parachi is a town that's very conservative, however, but very thoughtful and sensitive to engage in this dialogue with people, the Kaisara people, the traditional peoples, the Quilombola, African descendant people with cultures that are different, diverse cultures. Parachi, I see that has great potential. That's why I'm bringing a chant, a song to, and I beg your license, that of our grand creator and that of the organization of Flip, to hear my song of Nye Ere, which is the Atlantic Forest. Nye Ere. This I will be singing. This is handed down from generation to generation. Hence, again, this inspiration for artists. We believe he'll be singing in Guarani. Tupi Guarani.
Cheru tenondegua, chechik tenondegua. Apa jewuma ko diaru. Demo chakaru pare jewuma. Ori guara rete roja guru wuma guru japuk chakari de ko erpi jewu. Bingrong puang. Doi wei katu nye eru apa ori kwai apa para chipu kwai yo jawi to guerum boragu opamba este granjepe agu jevete pame. Muito obrigado.
Thank you very much. Again in Tupi Guarani. Thank you so much. It's not just theory. We're talking about traditional knowledge already. And Cristine, I'd like for you to tell us a little bit about how education, which is an area that you reflect on and you're concerned and dedicated to, can help make this meeting open up the town and bring back collective living. That's the separation is becoming unsustainable. Good morning, everyone. Everyone, one and all. I want to thank you for the possibility to be here, talking a little bit about the thinking. I see that there are seeds. When we speak, we sow the seeds in others, the heads of others, and we leave monoculture and we create a vast agroforestry territory of thought just happening here. A lot of dialogue, a lot of experiences, a lot of feelings that are shared. And as a teacher, I was thinking to myself when they invited me to speak here and flip this relationship between the cities and the forests. There's a term written which is open cities, and I reflected on that term for days. This theme, thinking of open cities. And I have a 9-year-old son. He's sitting out in the audience, Kawe. And one day when we came to Paraty some time ago, he said to me, "Mom, why is Paraty full of change? You go from one town to another, or one street to another, rather. It's full of these chains, this feeling that there's a historical understanding as well. The processes and the way that cities are created lead us to reflect on the resistance of the flowers and the plants that resist in the cement and the concrete. And this is very interesting. As a teacher, I see, until recently I was teaching in school. I no longer teach in school, but when I used to teach philosophy and sociology and history, we received books from the Ministry of Education. At the beginning of the book of sociology, it reflected for young people to understand the difference between nature and culture. And I always thought this was rather odd, this distinction between nature and culture and this relationship, because all of us are nature. We're all nature, and all of us produce culture. The bees, the ants, the ferns, the quilombolas, the Guaranis, Machacali, Caiçaras, all living beings produce culture, which is nature. So for me, it's rather odd to distinguish or to put a distance between things that are so closely interconnected. So when I think of the city and how people approach, like Papá, he says, this is Nyere territory. If we close our eyes and concentrate, we understand that here, under all of this, and this cement, and this, all of these buildings, the forest is living there everywhere. Some places the rivers were covered over, the mangroves there was landfill, the trees were knocked down, but the forest is still there. The spirit of the trees that were cut down, the spirit is still there. So the elders say that the rivers never die, the elders say. Their spirit is there, dormant, even contaminated and polluted, but the spirit of the river is there. So this nature that pulsates and that resists in midst of all of our human activity, because we humans are always messing up this dwelling place. It's not just us that share it, because we are here as a tiny speck, but there are numerous visible and invisible beings that share this territory with us. And what I think is rather curious, and I always said this to my students, that no matter how people attempt to take a distance from nature, and there's a plastification of modern society, I think nature is beautiful, but far from me. But everything around us, surrounding us, sprouts from nature. That's why I think it's interesting to see the periodic table when you study chemistry. It's difficult to understand all the weird names, but you can see the periodic table. It's pure forest, because to have this microphone, this glass, this stage, these wires, everything here, it all came from nature. Everything came from nature. So we reflect on this relationship or this distance. We have to stop to think a little bit about respect. Respect for mineral beings, for plant beings, and with animals as well. Plants, minerals, and animals. Without them, we can't live. It's a relationship like a web, a huge web where everything is interconnected. To believe that they're separate, it's really ignorant. We human beings are very ignorant because we think it's not just ignorance, it's arrogance, not ignorance, because centuries of development of fundamental reason based on so many theses and books. Is everybody actually practicing all these theories like words to the wind? Well, as a teacher, I always said this. It doesn't do any good to stuff people full of theory if in practice you're void of meaning. Because for me, education is the path for a good life. And if today the cities are totally imbalanced, because even today people don't conceive public policies to not dump human waste into the rivers. The rivers are sacred. Come on. Here in our body we have veins and arteries with blood. If we eat poorly, our veins get clogged, our arteries get clogged, and we'll get sick. Same thing with the earth. The rivers are the arteries and veins of earth. If politicians don't think that dumping sewage into a river means to pollute the earth, what kind of policy is it? A policy that doesn't practice ethics and respect. And the relationship in the web that involves everything inhabiting the earth, it's not a policy at all. So I talk about education as well. This political diseducation in our country, which has meant that all of this mess, this contradiction with respect is happening here. Not just in Parachi, but we can take many other examples as well. Examples, strong examples, and others are kind of more soft. Ecocide in Brazil, and it's not considered a crime. Ecocide. So to kill the Rio Doce, the Pau-Peba River, and all the other rivers which were assassinated, fine. In Bertioga, they're transposing the Itapaú River to take water to São Paulo because they managed to pollute the Tietê River and the Pinheiros River, all the rivers that exist there, and there's no more drinking water. So I have to transpose water from Itaiambabu. It's a river. It's a deeply beautiful river in Bertioga. I don't know if anybody's ever seen in Bertioga and has seen the Itapaú River.
And many movements were done for us to stop that movement, but silently, subreptitiously, it's being done. as well as broadening the roads, the highways, and then kilometers of forests will be cut down so that tourists can go faster to the beach and so that merchandise can go faster from one way to the other. But the environmental impact involved in this destruction, I don't care. What matters is to get there faster. Merchandise has to go faster because we are consumists. Mankind belongs to that, to merchandise. All those that consume are also merchandise. So we as humans, we have to try to disconnect from our belly button, from this arrogance of mankind, and understand that this relation which involves us, especially with the invisible beings, because they are sometimes forgotten, has to be respected. So I came here to Paraty to tell you that we human beings need to respect all forms of life, because our humanity has already failed. So if we do not change our habits, if we do not understand these different networks, these different relations, and how much the cities need to rethink their ethics, their ways of elaborating policies to respect the river and everything that lives inside the river, because the city is a forest. There are certain medications that you can find by a little rock. A bee will build their hives amidst the little bricks. And the forest is live, but we always insist in changing the forest. So I ask you to respect all beings. Thank you. Yes, this exchange is helping us open new paths. So if we could, Papa, talk about, when we talk about education, the so-called escolas vivas, the live schools, if you could talk about the role of the arts and artists and the spiritual vision of ancestral peoples, how can we, of course not to bring back because it's still alive and present, but it's unknown, it's sometimes disconnected, it's sometimes unknown from white people, from cities, and of course they are not known by merchandise. How does art, or how can art, allow us to understand and learn how to listen, how to read, and understand these ancestral knowledge, and which apparently is our way out before the sky falls over our heads. This way of understanding spirituality which is something that is born from feeling, listening, because we believe that when you go to the outside, there are certain codes. How do you call this? These different codes of energy that will be around us every minute, every second. And the wind will have its own codes, colors. And through this understanding, we are able to find inspiration. For instance, here I have my maracá. It's a small one, but it is designed or drawn. But when you build this, you have to listen to it. You have to understand the codes of time, of each minute, and you will create your own designs through your understanding. You will listen to your rattle, to your instrument, and time will teach you. Time will bring you inspiration. And this is how art is born, what you call art. To us, art would be bauk, which is play. Something that it's playful, it's whimsical, something you will play with your movement. Mba would be the whole. And k is to create, to be born. It will be spread on the floor, and it will rise again in darkness, and it will begin k. K is to be born again, is to be reborn. K. And then you will try to find time, light, daylight. And the way that you open your eyes and you see and you understand, then you will understand the birth of your movement, of your understanding, where it will be a way of playing with your feeling, and this is where inspiration comes from. You talk about inspiration, so you will be inspired by this playful movement of the body and this understanding that comes from within, from the darkness into the light. And we call this pau-ke. We don't call it art. So pau-ke is playfulness. The way you see a painting, for instance, when you talk about art, any artist. Let's say a famous painter that everybody knows, like Leonardo da Vinci. And you look at that painting and you say, it's the way he was playful at his time. It's about ke at that time, manguaré. So the way he played at that time was different. So there's always a playfulness of your movement, of your feelings, of your understanding, and at that specific time. So to us, art there is no translation from Portuguese into our language of art. There is this concept. This is how we understand art, which is to play. Yes, I guess our white people mind cannot separate this, and art is life and is playfulness, and also this whole idea, we also separate theory from practice. It's something very idiosyncratic of white men or white people. Chris, of course, without trying to separate theory from practice, what is actually happening, can happen in real terms, so that we will not turn our backs, so that the city won't turn its back to the forest and open to it as a form of survival of mankind and all beings. That's a tough thing. Papá didn't say this, but he coordinates a space that we've been calling Escolas Vivas in our territory in the village of Rio Silveira. And so based on the idea of Escolas Vivas, and I believe that are living schools, and I guess throughout mankind or humankind, there was this project. A living school, or a school actually, is a format of domination. And this project was accepted by everyone. Everyone will go to school, right? So it is this project of domination, a common school. So whatever is being taught, driven, and taught to youngsters and children, so that this relation becomes a bit more balanced. So I have been developing in time a very strong criticism in terms of the existence of schools in our lives. I could stay here for hours talking about the uselessness of schools, but I won't do that. What I wanted to say, or the starting point, is how much we need to dream more, to be brave enough to ask for change, to ask for transformation, because once you enroll your child in school, what is that child learning? Is that child learning how to access a well-being, how to develop practices that can be sustainable for our lives, for their lives? Lots of people talk about sustainability, but will we be able to produce sustainable cities one day? There's a lot of contradiction in these words and these theories, because we are unable to do things in order to overcome these contradictions in our actions. When we open our window and when we go outside, we find a number of little plants. A plant that will lower your fever, a plant that will kill worms, a plant that will do away with any headache. It's all there. It's a vast knowledge land. Plants are wonderful professors, but who will want to learn? Just run to the next drugstore and buy a pill that is colored and sweet and just take it. And the pharmaceutical industry is also a domination project, as schools are, the institutions in general. So, once we understand this political game, we start looking into our backyard, because we have life. The cure is right there. The transmission of knowledge, this relation of respect. So to live in the cities, regardless if this is a Maroon community, a Quilombo, a native, whatever it is, humans will occupy territories. And territories, rural or urban, regardless, are theories or conceptions that were created to rate, classify, label who lives here or there. But the territory is one nyeri. Regardless if you're in the Maroon area, if you're Caiçara, if you're Guarani, or if you're in a 5-star hotel in Paraty. This is a territory. It's called nyeri. So the conception of a city has to be taken into consideration, or rethought, reconsidered, because this territorial relation is beyond any kind of labeling. It's what Papá always says. If we were unable to see, we would not label things. I like it when Papá says that, because we see ourselves so tiny when we're able to understand the dimension of darkness and how much we need to do away with this rational arrogance we all carry with us, and to, tone things down and to see that we're really tiny. So this search in terms of driving forward the so-called living schools, it's what we've been doing these past months. It's this dream of trying to sponsor new ways to convey knowledge that are not within the four walls of common schools, pretty kids sitting in a row filled with bureaucracy and rules. The conveying of knowledge is not to give you access to the labor market, but it's to learn how to live well and to respect and to live healthy and happy. This has everything to do with this reflection of understanding the cities, because every city has a school. And the true school is in the forest. So we have to reflect about that. Yes, unfortunately we have reaching the end. Papa brought a film, and we're going to see it now. Western civilization is understanding that a number of assumptions that supported the society for so many years is bringing us to an unsustainable situation in terms of the survival of our species, especially with regards to environmental conditions. One of the main things that the native population has and makes it valuable is another way of seeing things and seeing the relation between society and nature, between humans and non-humans. Another way of understanding mankind and people. For the native population, nature will give meaning to life. Everything is a balance, like a big network where everything is connected in a living organism. The power is in showing us the path of knowledge. Each sign we receive will have a different meaning for our lives. Maybe a song of a bird, thunder. These are all signs that something is about to happen. Ants, the clouds, wind, everything. These are omens that are sent to us, and they have to do with knowledge, and they will guide us and tell us what to do and how to deal with things. In Guarani, tekopora is how we think about well-being. It's a very complex concept. It's a philosophical, political, social, and cultural, and it has to do with the beautiful way and the good way of to being in the territory. So we believe it is a way of living a life in balance, respecting the forests and the different forms of life, with animals, beings, plants. Many people will have in their languages a tradition for the concept of a well-being, this form of living this balanced world. In our vision, this is it. It's a way of thinking the territory and the life in this certain way. Children will have a strong relation with nature, with what is natural. This is our way of conveying knowledge. It's a way of educating our children, allowing them to learn by living and live and play and learn with the animals, with the trees. This will allow the children to become stronger, both in terms of their spirits and culture. However, lately, there's so much interference, environmental changes, men over territories, and to us, it's a very delicate matter. Communities today where the territory was reduced, and there are conflicts because of agribusiness and mining. Our fight our struggle for the recognition of our territory is to allow our children to continue to live, play, and learn with the spirits of the forest. And even more than that, so that the beings of the forest, all the different animals, bees, trees, can also continue to live as they should in the natural life. And when our maracas, or rattles, are still playing in our homes and huts and children singing, we will continue to resist. In each seed of each plant, and each seed, naming all the plants and all the sacred plants that will cure. And while we are able to cultivate these plants, there will still be, we still be sure that these somber times will be through. So the idea is to have a resilience in our hearts, to resist, to survive, to believe, so we will never stop smiling.
So they told me that we're going to have to wrap up. So I want to thank Cristine and Papá and Flip and the curators, the wonderful curators. And I want to thank the audience. We have another round table immediately afterwards. So I have to adjourn now. Okay?